Hi guys, my name is Shabana, and today I will be talking to you about a very important topic. It's something that is not normally talked about, especially in the Caribbean. Sometimes we take pregnancy for granted. That topic I want to talk about today is called Hyperemesis Gravidarum. Now, presently I have a 7 month old. She turned 7 months yesterday. And throughout my whole pregnancy, I suffered with hyperemesis gravidarum. For those of you who don't know what hyperemesis gravidarum is, it is severe um, morning sickness, it's severe vomiting, and it happens all day, anytime. It doesn't have a set time. It just happens. Now, for me, I immediately began getting sick even before my missed period, so I already knew that I was pregnant. And um, what I did not mention before was that I have a 5 year old, and when I was pregnant with him, I also had hyperemesis gravidarum. I thought I would be able to manage with this pregnancy, but I wasn't ready. I was not ready. I immediately started having morning sickness. Like it was immediate. I actually took my at home pregnancy test about maybe 5 days before my missed period because I had already begun getting sick and I tested positive. My first missed period was the 17th of December 2018. By the 7th of January 2019, I was already hospitalized for hyperemesis gravidarum. I was vomiting more than 10 times a day. I wasn't able to drink water. And even when I did get some water in, immediately as it went in, it came out. I had aversions to smells, taste, and what might sound very strange, even different things like my son, he used to watch this show called Dino Trucks, and just thinking about it now, I could remember my times, just trying to go through him, watching his series without me being sick, nauseous, and literally vomiting. It was that terrible. It was that terrible. Um, Throughout my pregnancy journey, there was a lot of different doctor visits. I had vomiting so much that at one point I was really dehydrated to the point where I had not urinated in over 24 hours. And not only that, the constant vomiting, it caused me to bleed. So at one point I thought I had a miscarriage, but when I went to see the doctor and I had an ultrasound done, I found out that I did not have a miscarriage. Um, the bleeding was probably from one of my episodes of vomiting. I had numerous trips to the hospital, numerous, um, where I was given drips, gravel, it didn't work. I had to take many um, types of anti um, nausea medication to no avail. In the Caribbean, we have this thing called DICA, DICA. Yeah, I think that's how you spell it. It didn't work. Tums didn't work. Um, my doctor, he's super cool. He he's a lifesaver actually. I never felt afraid to talk to my doctor. I never felt ashamed to talk to him, even though I didn't want to become a burden because I was vomiting so much times. If I had to actually call my doctor every time I vomited more than 10 times a day, then I thought that I would be a pest. So there were many times when I would just keep what I'm going through to myself. My immediate family at home, they would know what I'm going through. Came to a point where I actually moved out of my own house. I went to visit my friend, my best friend, and she's so sweet. Her house was so clean, spick and span. She didn't have any children, running around with their own smells. I couldn't take the smell of my son, my husband. It's nothing about them. It's me personally, my hormones. I just couldn't take the smell of anyone, even myself. I couldn't take foul. I couldn't take smells. It was terrible. So I went to her house. Like I said, her house was spick and span. Um, but even at her house, I was sick. We tried everything, ginger teas, didn't work. Soups, tried cooking without seasoning. Oh yes, as I said, cooking. I couldn't even cook. No, I couldn't cook my own food. Even the smell of even the smell of boiling water made me feel sick. Yes, boiling water. Because apparently, when the water is boiling, whatever smell the pot would have had before was left in the pot, and that smell made me terribly sick. Terribly sick. I would vomit. Went to my friend's house, and everything that we tried, nothing worked. I would, just suck on ice, but there's only so much ice you could take in, and eventually, when the ice goes into your stomach, the ice turns to liquid, and that would immediately come out. So I wasn't getting enough liquids in my body. My friend, she was like, "You need to call the doctor." I said, "No, I don't want to call the doctor." She was like, "Well, I am gonna call the doctor for you," and she did. She did. She told the doctor that I wasn't feeling well and I was vomiting, and because of her phone call, I ended up staying in the hospital for guess for about 20 days. Because even when I went into the hospital, where you thought it's a very sterile environment, I was still vomiting. I was on drips. I was on different um, nausea medication. Nothing worked. Absolutely nothing worked. The weight started coming off. At my heaviest, I was 245 pounds at my heaviest. By time I had the baby, I was 196 pounds. Well, that was the day before I had the baby. So by the day before I had the baby, I was 196 pounds. Yeah, from 245 to 196 in pregnancy. So I had already started dropping a lot of weight, and that was a concern. And so my pregnancy was deemed, high risk because of the vomiting and stuff like that. Not only that, I developed what was called cholestasis. Um, my gallbladder started, forming sludge and um, stones. So, along with the regular pregnancy hormones, my gallbladder started acting up. So, my doctor had to put me on a low fat diet. So, I was pregnant, but I was on a low fat diet. Yeah. And even then, I was still vomiting. I tried a lot of different things. People would say, try Coke, try eating ginger, eat ginger sweetie, eat mint. Everything I tried made me sick immediately. Sick immediately. Um, then along with the cholestasis, my liver and everything. Uh, my doctor kept monitoring me for everything. Like I said, he was really sweet about it, and he would contact his team to find out like what we needed to do. It came to a point where we were actually talking about removing my gallbladder, but when he consulted his team, it was advised that I shouldn't because I wasn't having pain to the area. Like if you touch the area where my gallbladder was, it wasn't to the point where I was having pain there. So and then because I wasn't really eating properly and stuff like that, we didn't really want to put my body at a disadvantage where I would have to have a surgery and then still be pregnant and not being able to eat and recovery and stuff like that. We didn't want to put myself at an unnecessary risk if if we didn't have to. So was advised against that. And so along with the hyperemesis, along with the cholestasis, I had um, spitting. I kept spitting. Even in my sleep, I would form enough saliva to like choke me in my sleep. What I used to do in order to sleep, sometimes I would put a towel in my mouth so that if I'm drooling, the towel will, absorb that spit and stuff like that, so that I wouldn't have to wake up because it was really that bad. I had a lot of terrible comments where people thought it was in my mind. I was making things up. Like, how could I how could I make that up? Being in a situation like this, I was isolated from people, not by will. It's not that I didn't want to be around people, but I didn't have a choice, because I couldn't take the smell of, you know, what people were wearing, what people were eating. I couldn't take the smell of food. Um, so different people were saying this in my head. People were scorning me because I was spitting a lot. Um, Even my experience in the hospital where I had to get the services of the nutritionist. She was very sweet. Um, the nutritionist, she had um, an intern, and that intern, she really tried her best. She would speak to her teacher, her tutor, and whatever ideas they would have, she would bounce that idea to me, and we would try, many different things. Um, at the hospital, some people didn't really understand what I was going through. So when I couldn't eat the food that I was provided, and the nutritionist would decide, okay, let's try something else. Because daily the nutritionist would come by to see, did you eat yesterday? Um, did it stay down? How did it interact with your stomach? Because not only did I have vomiting, spitting, cholestasis, and stuff like that, when I ate, I would have terrible stomach burn, and sometimes I would vomit to the point where there is nothing to be vomited, that I'm vomiting bile, stomach juices. It's terrible. And so there were times when she would have to change the menu. That's not necessarily the menu that was to be cooked that day. And different people would, remember this one lady, she met me in the kitchen, and she was like, you need to eat what's being provided for you. You need to eat. You ever stop to think that maybe it's in your mind? I felt attacked. I felt I was being judged. I mean, it's in my mind. Who pregnant lady wouldn't want to feed and nurture their baby? In my mind, I wish that I could, stand my husband down the road and say, okay, I'm pregnant. Um, in the Caribbean, we use this word, I fancy cook up. Go and get me cook up. Baby needs cook up. And when you're pregnant, dads just run and get whatever you want because wife is pregnant and baby needs what baby needs. I wish I could do that, but there was nothing that I wanted. I was little I was literally petrified to eat because when I vomit, the vomit, it wasn't just, I eat and it comes out like that. No, I had vomiting like the exorcist. The vomiting will come through my mouth, through my nose. Yeah, it was that kind of vomit. Vomiting to the point where sometimes I feel like I'm gonna choke to death kind of vomit. So yes, when that lady met me and told me that, I felt really bad because what she didn't know was that my best friend, I had this thing called papaya, and I felt like I was fancying papaya. I kept thinking about papaya. I was to the point of obsession. I wanted papaya. At that time, papaya wasn't in season here, so my friend went all over town and she finally found papaya. Yeah, she found it. And she brought it for me. And as soon as I ate it, yeah, no question, the papaya came up. And I already felt bad because she went all over the place looking for it. And I wanted to eat it and it came up. And I'm like, everything I try, nothing is working. Nothing is working. And to have this lady come and tell me something that is so insensitive, like my mind, yeah. And so that was one time, and sometimes the same lady, I used to feel attacked by her, really. That's how I felt. Sometimes she would come into my room and she would be like, eat, eat, eat. Well, you're not eating, eat. But it's not like I don't want to eat. And sometimes, like, if you bring the food, I have to eat it as soon as I smell it. Because if I smell it and I start vomiting, I can't eat. And sometimes I try to eat it and it makes me sick all day. Like, literally sick. Sick all day, all day. I remember this one time I was in the hospital for so many times. I spent um, over 150 days, I think, collectively in the hospital, no exaggeration. And even the times when I wasn't literally in hospital, hospitalized, hooked up on drips, there were times when I would just visit the hospital, get drips, leave, stuff like that. And when I'm not at the hospital, I'm at the doctor's office because I had to take regular checkups to make sure that my gallbladder was okay, the baby was going fine, stuff like that. I remember one time I had a hospital roommate. It was it was Valentine's, and her she had um, cheese sandwiches, sausages, different things, and she didn't have a problem like me. So, and that's the other problem that I had is that I would have a roommate who didn't have the same problem that I had. So they would have different things eating that had different smells and stuff like that. But she was going on and on about how good her food smelled, and the person that brought her package decided to bring me a package as well because it was Valentine's. So I told her, I didn't want to eat it, but it smelled, I wouldn't say smell good because any smell, but when I looked at how my roommate was eating, it looked so delicious. So I decided to eat, and I kid you not, that cheese sandwich. You know how we make cheese sandwich in the Caribbean. You know that Jamaican cheddar mixed with mayonnaise and in sliced bread, cut in squares with some onion grated and stuff like that. Salty. The salt, it went down delicious. And I kid you not, it wasn't even a second after it went down, it came out. And I was sick all night. And, I used to feel ashamed of myself, because I couldn't, indulge in stuff that people would, like, even, like, chewing gum and stuff like that. Everything would make me sick. Everything would make me sick. So, um, I couldn't even eat stuff from people. I would just admire people eating in a distance. I would watch TV shows with people cooking and eating and enjoying themselves. But for me, that was a no. I couldn't do it. And even at the hospital, there were times when I realized that if I did eat and the food did stay, that I couldn't talk, you know, after I ate. So I would have to put a sign on my door saying, please don't visit around because our eating times were scheduled. You would eat for 8 in the morning, 12 o'clock, and then our dinner time is at 5. So I would put a note on my door saying that I cannot accept visitors after before I eat or after I eat. So give me an hour before I eat and give me an hour after I eat so that my food, would start digesting and that even a little bit would stay. And I remember this one time I had the sign on my door, and this particular person, though how the hospital is set up, there's two doors in this particular room. And even though I had the sign at the front door, this person decided to enter my room at the back door. So it's like I was caught off guard because the back door is the door for the nurses to enter. So when I heard the door open, I automatically assumed it was a nurse. But anyway, it wasn't a nurse, but it was a friend, somebody who I trusted, and this friend came in, and on my table I had uh, an apple. I had some tea and stuff like that because I think it was time for me to have breakfast, but I wasn't quite ready yet. I wasn't feeling good. So now I'm a Christian, so don't get me wrong. But sometimes Christians can be very judgmental, and we have to be very careful about how we approach people because it's not everything is the devil. You know, everything is not the devil. So I'm there, and my friend came in and he was like, "You're not gonna eat?" I'm like, "No, I don't feel well right now." And he was like, "Well, you need to eat, you need to have faith. um, I'm going to pray for you, and this is going to be the last time that you vomit. I'm going to pray for you, you need to have faith." And so it's like he made me feel like it's my lack of faith that is making me sick. It's not the hormones that are raging through my body because of the pregnancy that's making me sick. It's the lack of faith that I'm having that's making me sick. So anyways, he came, he prayed for me, and he said, "Eat, eat." Beyond my better judgment, I had been pregnant for a good while, and I know when I put things in, they come out, regardless of faith, because I had been praying, you know, doing the most, trying to keep my food down. So he was like, "I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray over your food. I'm going to bless your food, and you're going to eat." I was like, "I don't want to eat it. I don't feel well." He was like, "You need to have faith. That's what you're lacking. You need to eat, whatever, whatever." So he started praying for me. He prayed for the apple. He prayed for the food, stuff like that. Beyond my better judgment, um, to prove that I had faith, I decided to eat the apple. Um, I immediately got sick and I vomited like the exorcist. And of course, he was like, he started praying in tongues. Anything that is not of God, come out. So it was like, I was having a moment where demons are being expelled from my body, because anything that is not of God come out and I'm vomiting. Yeah. Those are the kind of things, the judgmental things, even from a Christian standpoint, where you assume it's the devil that is making me vomit. Or, like one time I had a friend, and I was explaining to the friend, what I was going through, and my friend, she didn't really understand what I was going through, and you know why every time I get pregnant, this always happened. And then she said it's probably something that I did or something that my husband did, and like a curse has befallen my family. And then, one time I reached out to this friend. Well, she reached out to me and she was asking me, what I was going through. And so I told her I was in the hospital. So she immediately assumed that I had lost the baby because I had lost two babies prior, separate times. And so she automatically assumed I had lost this one. And so she was like, "Why is it that God keeps taking your babies? It's something that you have been doing, something that your family is doing. It's a curse." That wasn't very nice to say. And it wasn't a curse. It's hormones. It's Hyperemesis Gravidarum, something that nobody really talks about. It happens to 1%, 1 to 2% of the population. We take things for granted. So, I felt uncomfortable telling even my own friends and family how I was feeling because I didn't want to be judged, whether it's in my mind or whether it's demon possession that was making me sick. Because people don't, when you don't understand something, it's easier for you to blame the devil. Yeah. So, I was in the hospital. I kept getting drips. My veins kept collapsing, kept losing weight, kept being dehydrated. It's an experience that, sometimes unless you go through it personally, you won't necessarily understand what somebody else is going through because, you know, you can look at my face back then, you'll be able to look at my face and you wouldn't tell, that she's struggling because, if I'm going out, I'm gonna dress up, I'm gonna try and put on makeup, even though, I really went out because being around people made me sick. I hardly worked. Um, I work in a school setting, and for a whole term, I could say I only worked for maybe 4 days. Yeah, it was that bad, and it's Hyperemesis Gravidarum. It could be very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing because not only did I have the spitting, I had hiccups. So randomly, I was just start hiccuping up. All kind of funny noises. I'm like, what? I remember one time I was in a bank and um, I just heard coming from my own body, and I was like, and then there was a lady in front of me, and she looked back and she watched me, and I looked away like that sound didn't come from me. But yeah, that too. And also, I had a lot of festering boils on my body. I don't know where that came from. I think my immune system got weak, and I had, many pus-filled bumps coming from my body as well. And I had a lot of bumps on my face, under my neck, my hands, on my legs, where my muscles are. I had like bumps with pus, coming out. A lot of different things I had with this pregnancy. Um, things that people generally wouldn't have. Things that people generally wouldn't understand. Uh, my pregnancy, it was a very depressing time. It was very depressing. I felt alone. I didn't really have much visitors. I didn't really have much, um, people checking in. It was a very lonely time. It was a time that tested my faith. It was a time that tested my friendships. It was a time that made me, think about people on a whole and, wonder if I would be missed if I died. Made me think about life, made me think about death. Um, my pregnancy, it even made me think about, you know, do I really want to continue this pregnancy? I mean, is it worth it? I actually felt like I was going to die. There were many times when I felt like I was going to die. And, even when I talk about the vomiting, I remember one time, because sometimes I would vomit and there's nothing inside of me but water because I hadn't eaten, you know. I didn't have appetite. Didn't have appetite and stuff like that. One time I vomited, and while I was vomiting, I choked and my ear passage got blocked. I thought I was going to die. The first time that happened to me, I was at the hospital, so thank God the emergency personnel were there. They were able to help me. Then I had a panic attack while that was going on, and they were able to help me. I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for them. I'm really grateful for the staff at the hospital who were very helpful. I'm very grateful for my doctor. I keep saying that I can't I, I can't, stop thinking about, everything that he did to save my pregnancy, to save my life, to save my baby. Um, one time that same thing happened while I was at home. The vomiting, water went into the wrong place, went into my lungs, and because I was at home, because we live in the Caribbean and we know the place is hot, and then the extra hormones from my body being hot, I was naked. Yeah. What a time to choke in your house when you are naked. So I started choking and I couldn't breathe and I'm gasping for air, but the air wouldn't come, and I didn't have on any clothes, and I I felt like I was gonna die alone in my house because my husband was at work, my son was at school. Um, I ran outside, but on my way running outside, I'm naked, running outside. I took my towel, wrapped myself, and I ran outside because I was like, if I stop breathing and I faint, I prefer to faint where someone can see me and resuscitate me than to faint in my house and die. So I ran outside, and on my way running outside, my neighbor was coming from his house and he saw me on the outside and he ran over to my help. And, in talking to me, I was able to burp and cough, and some of the liquid came up, and then I was able to take a breath in. But I literally felt like that day I was going to give up the ghost. It was that terrible. It was bad. It was bad. My pregnancy had many ups and downs. There wasn't really much times when I was able to, just enjoy the pregnancy. I didn't really have a belly per se because I kept vomiting, I kept losing weight. So I didn't have a belly. Even up until when I was 7, 8 months pregnant, unless you knew, you wouldn't know. So I didn't really show like that. Um, so I didn't really have that, advantage of having a belly, to show stuff like that. Um, Came to a point where I was so ill that I was advised by my doctor to try and leave the island, because we don't have proper neonatal care here. We have neonatal care, don't get me wrong, huh? I'm not trying to diss my country, we try, but um, at that point in pregnancy where I was, the baby wasn't, properly developed yet. My doctor, he had good foresight. So what he would do to get my baby ready is that I would get the steroid injections for her lungs, so that in the event that she did come early, the chances of survival would be a bit higher because the steroid shot would have, you know, done something for her lungs, so that even if she was premature, her lungs would be mature enough to survive, on her own. So I was advised to leave. I was going to go to Barbados because I studied in Barbados and I have friends there, but the price to have a baby in Barbados is ridiculous. And I didn't really have that support in Barbados, so I tried to go to Antigua. I also heard that Antigua had a good neonatal care. I did some research. I found out that it did. My doctor, he was calling ahead to get a doctor over in Antigua that he could refer me to, but that doctor, you know, wasn't there at the time. And I really didn't feel comfortable going into a new place, starting over again, having to discuss my problems with a new doctor who probably didn't understand my case. I had a good relationship with my doctor because of my previous pregnancy and past pregnancies. So, he knows me, he knows what I'm going through, he knows that it's not in my mind, I'm not making things up. And so I just had a good working relationship with my doctor, and I felt really sad having to leave and having to explain to some another doctor who maybe who may not be versed in a case like mine and maybe not take me seriously. I didn't want to have to deal with that again. But anyways, I started planning. I called ahead. I booked to go to Antigua to have the baby, but that wasn't to be. I ended up getting sick again, and this time I was hospitalized for I think 43 days, and I never left. I just had the baby. One time I had the baby 2 weeks early. It was either 2 or 3 weeks early. I had it early because the vomiting wouldn't stop. It was a planned C-section. My iron was low. I couldn't take prenatal vitamins. They really made me sick. I'm gonna do a video later on to discuss the medications that I took. I'm doing this on my break at work. I'm going to do a video later on to talk about the medications that I took because I don't have those medications with me. This is an impromptu video. I didn't really plan it, so I didn't really document, what I was gonna talk about today. So, my my delivery was planned because it was C-section. The baby, by the time I had her, she was born 5 pounds, I think 2 ounces, a tiny thing, cutie. But the journey to have her was terrible. And even, coming down to the end, you would think, okay, I've been through hell already. Um, Many collapse veins, um, the works. I've been through hell already. You would think, okay, the birth would be awesome. But it was like, psych, gotcha, think again. Coming down to have that done, give me a second, a second. Yeah, so I had a planned C-section, as I said, and I was already prepped and ready to go, and then we had, I think, 3 emergencies that popped in at that same time. So whereas I was ready from since about 5 a.m. for my surgery, 3 ladies came in after me, and they had to have their baby before me. And then when by the time it was time for me to go, give me a second.